Hi, this is Yona, the after school leader at Field Teen Center, and this week I'm going to show you how to make your own version of this mountain landscape in watercolor. Let's talk supplies. You'll need watercolor paper, watercolor paints, some water, a pencil for sketching, and maybe some scratch paper for sketching out your idea as well. I started by drawing the shape of my mountains on another piece of paper to see if I liked the way they looked, and because I wanted to make 3 copies of this drawing. That part's optional, but I'm going to show you how I did it. First, I made sure my pencil outline was thick and dark, and then I laid it face down on another piece of paper. Then I scribbled on the back using lots of pressure. You can see here how the graphite transferred from one paper to another. The copies don't need to be very dark because we're going to paint on top of them anyway, but you do want to make sure not to move the paper once you lay it down to start transferring, or you'll end up with graphite in places you don't want it. Once you've finished your sketch, we're going to start painting the first layer. I want it to blend really smoothly, so I'm going to start by wetting my entire paper with clean water so that I have a wet surface to paint on. This is called wet on wet. You can see here the surface is wet and shiny. I'm going to start by laying down some yellow and maybe blending in a little bit of red. And I'm going to keep this layer very light, blending with more clean water on my brush if I need to move some of the paint around, because I can always add another layer when it dries. But right now I just want it to be very smooth and very soft because, as you could see from my example at the beginning, I'm going to have a very pale background and darker mountains as they get closer to the viewer. In general, objects that are farther away look lighter, and objects that are closer are darker and have more detail. Go outside and check it out, see if you think it's true. While the paper's still wet, I'm blending in a little more red and orange here at the top. And you can see I've covered my entire page with at least a little bit of this yellow paint so that when I'm adding my next layer on top, I won't be painting on a white surface. It'll have a little bit of something to add richness to the color. Now I need to wait for my paper to dry completely. It shouldn't be shiny, and when I touch the underside of the paper, it shouldn't feel cool. It should be room temperature. If the paper doesn't get a chance to dry completely, the next layer I put down will bleed and won't look very nice. If you're painting at home, you can speed this up a little bit with a hairdryer on a low setting. Next, I'll fill in my first layer of mountains with a darker red color, blending in some purple shadows, maybe some oranges, but I won't use the darkest colors here because I have another layer of mountains that will go in front of it and be even darker, and I'll have some trees in front. When that layer's dry, I'll add the next. I used purple, but you could use blue, and you can blend a lot of different colors in here to make it interesting and add shadows. As long as it's darker than the color before, it will work. While we're waiting for that to dry, here's an overview of each of the steps and layers that we've done so far. The final step will be to add details in the darkest color, in black. I'm going to add some pine trees, and I'll even add some birds. So I make my pine trees by starting with a long skinny line that might be thicker at the bottom, and I'll make little branches coming off the side. It's not exactly a triangle because trees are uneven and their branches stick out, but it's generally narrower at the top and it slowly gets wider each layer down. If you want, you can always practice on another piece of paper so you don't risk messing up your final painting. And here's how my final painting turned out. If you do this craft at home, we would love to see how yours turned out. Feel free to DM us on Instagram or email us. And I hope you had fun.